Are ye able, said the Master, to be crucified with me? Yea, the sturdy dreamers answered, to the death we follow thee.
Lord, we are able, our spirits are thine. Remold and make us like thee divine. Thy guiding radiance above we shall be, a beacon to God, to love and loyalty.
Are ye able to remember when a thief lifts up his eyes, that his pardoned soul is worthy of a place in paradise?
Lord, we are able, our spirits are thine. Remold and make us like thee divine. Thy guiding radiance above us shall be, a beacon to God, to love and loyalty.
Are ye able, when the shadows close around you with the sod, to believe that spirit triumphs, to commend your souls to God?
Lord, we are able, our spirits are thine. Remold and make us like thee divine. Thy guiding radiance above us shall be, a beacon to God, to love and loyalty.
Are ye able, still the Master whispers down eternity, in heroic spirits answered, now as then in Galilee?
Lord, we are able, our spirits are thine. Remold and make us like thee divine. Thy guiding radiance above us shall be, a beacon to God, to love and loyalty.
I don't know why I didn't know Jesus before I did. My home city, Cana, is only 3 or 4 miles from Nazareth. My name is Nathaniel, and I'm sometimes known as Bartholomew. I live in the outskirts of Cana, in a house surrounded by gardens and orchards. One day I went out to the fruit orchards to sit and read the Torah. It was a favorite spot of mine, under a fig tree whose large leaves hid me from the hot sun. At one point, I looked up from reading the scroll and I saw my friend Philip running towards me. So I made some room next to the bench for him to sit, but he was too excited to sit down. "Nathaniel," he almost shouted, "we have found the one whom Moses wrote about in the book of the law, and whom prophets also wrote." "What good news," I said as I rolled up the scroll. "And who is this one?" "He is Jesus, son of Joseph from Nazareth." "From Nazareth," I repeated. Did anything very important ever come from Nazareth? But Philip was too full of his news to pay my sarcasm any mind. "Come with me and see him," he invited. "You may change your opinion." So we set out beyond the orchards to the road. Several men were standing there talking to a tall, sun-browned young man. As we approached, Jesus looked at me and turned to his companions and said, "Now here comes a real Israelite. There is nothing false in him." "How do you know me?" I asked Jesus. He smiled and said, "I saw you sitting underneath a fig tree, Nathaniel, before Philip called you." That startled me. How could he have seen me 1,000 yards away, hidden by the trees? He did not know me, yet he called me an Israelite, a flattering compliment for me. One expects to be called a Jew, but Israelite recalls God's covenant with our forefather, Jacob, when he had changed his name to Israel, meaning Prince of God. His praise overcame me. This man had special insights. Only one aided by God could so know a stranger. With sudden inspiration, I dropped to my knees before Jesus. "Rabbi," I cried, "you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus answered, "Do you really believe that just because I saw where you were sitting underneath the fig tree? You will surely see much greater things than this." So, my career as a disciple began. And in these last 2 or 3 years, I have seen him do even greater things. But the greatest thing he ever did was to call me from under the fig tree to a life of service and love. Here's my friend Philip, who introduced me to Jesus.
I'm Philip. I'm from Bethsaida. It's near Galilee, and my ancestry is Greek. Simon, Peter, and Andrew are friends of mine back home, and they first told me about Jesus. But soon, everybody was talking about this Messiah and all the great things that he was doing. Now, when I first met Jesus, I found him to be a most impressive person, very powerful speaker. And we Greeks have a natural desire for reasons and explanations. So at once, I wanted to learn more about this man. I mean, what makes him, what gives him the power? What's his secret? I mean, there were magicians out there that would do things to trick your eye, and there were even some false messiahs out there. Well, for months, I traveled with the Master and the disciples all up and down Palestine. Oh, the things we saw. There were people that were lame. Walked up to them, he healed them. They got up and walked away. There were people that were blind. Didn't see in years. He touched them and they were suddenly able to see again. There were people that were dead that he brought back to life. It's amazing. And everywhere we went, Jesus would tell these stories, these parables. And the people would say, that's right. Or, how come we didn't think of that? Oh, Jesus was no magician. No. He was far too quiet, far too unassuming for that. He wasn't in it for the fame, certainly wasn't in it for the money. And Jesus, he was no show-off. Sometimes he would heal somebody, and then he'd say, "Don't tell anybody what happened." Jesus had this supersensory ability to see things and to feel things that were hidden from others. There was one time we were somewhere, and this woman, she approached us. She was lame, she was hunched over, and you could see that one of her foot was ruined. She gets right up to Jesus, and she reaches up, she just touches his robe. And once Jesus turns and said, "Woman, your faith has made you whole." She got up, stood straight up, and walked away healed. We all saw it. We walked away. And then there was a time 5,000 people came out to listen to Jesus speak and to see him. 5,000 people. Glorious. Then around time for the evening meal, Jesus comes up to me and says, how are we going to pay for food to feed all these people? They've been with us here all day. I said, I don't know. It's going to cost over 200 pennies worth of bread just for everybody to have one little piece. And just then, here comes Andrew. He's got this young boy with him. He's got a basket. In the basket, there's 5 barley loaves, 2 dried fish. He gives it to us. Jesus took that basket and he fed everybody. And when he was done, we had 12 baskets full of leftovers. There's really something truly marvelous about this man. Truly marvelous. But, what is the secret that makes Jesus Jesus? Huh? He said that God is his Father, and he's always praying to him. That's got to be it. That's got to be it. So, tonight, before dinner, I said, Jesus, how do we get to know the Father? Show him to us. That is what we need. He looked at me with this expression of great disappointment and sorrow and pain. He says, after all that you have seen, Philip, after all that you have heard, and you still do not know who I am, don't you know that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me? And if you have seen me, you have seen the Father. Have not my deeds proven this? I'm crushed, I'm embarrassed. But then this light starts to dawn on my head. It's like, I've been so blind. I've been so dense. I mean, I was with Jesus for months, and I witnessed and I saw every one of those miracles, and I accepted them for what they were. Yet here I am, demanding more proof. Is this how I have failed him, he who would be God himself? Andrew, I hope your story about your time with Jesus has more faith in it than mine.
My name is Andrew. I'm a fisherman from Bethsaida, a little village at the north end of the Sea of Galilee. For many months now, I have been following this man Jesus up and down the roads and byways of Palestine. Sometimes I wonder why I gave up helping support my family in order to follow a traveling preacher. One day, this Jesus beckoned to me along the seashore. Come with me, and I will make you a fisher of men. So Simon, my brother, and I left our nets and went with him. Why? Curiosity, I guess. What did this man mean by his promise, I will make you fishers of men? What is the coming kingdom of God? There was pride, too, because crowds were following Jesus to see his healing and hear his preaching. It was flattering to be associated with such a popular man. A sense of hunger and need as well. Was there a better life than fishing? Jesus hinted that there was by his words and deeds. God has a plan for all men, he said. So I, my brother, and these others have lived with Jesus, watched and listened to him. I have not always understood the things Jesus said. My understanding has sometimes floundered like a loose fish in the bottom of my boat, slippery to pick up, hard to catch. But gradually I have learned the meaning of what Jesus says, if not what he does. He has loved the poor and fed the hungry. I was the one who found the lad with the 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. With these I saw him feed 5,000 people. He has healed the sick. I saw Peter's mother-in-law brought back to health. I saw him minister to the ill and needy outside my house one day. Jesus used our boat once to escape the people that crowded around him. But he did not row across the lake. He stopped a little way out and told the people the parable of the sower of seeds. Some of the parable took root in me, I think. Now I know why I left home to follow him. It is because people are of greater importance than fish. It is because helping people is a way of serving God. It is because Jesus must surely be the Messiah, whom we have so long expected. When I first met Jesus, I asked him, "Where do you live?" He said, "Come with me and I will show you." I have gone with him, and he has shown me where he lives, and that is in the hearts of people and in my heart. I spoke of my brother Simon. Simon, come and tell the people about your life with Jesus.
I am Simon, brother of Andrew, and like him, a fisherman. When my brother told me many months ago that he had met the Messiah, I did not believe him. Not that I think Andrew is not a truthful man, but others have claimed to be the Messiah, and were proved to be false. Still, I was curious and went with Andrew to see for myself. I was impressed that Jesus turned out to be a fellow countryman, a Galilean like ourselves. He has a young, active body, a confident voice. I felt right away that Jesus knew whereof he spoke, and that he knew his business. That business turned out to be preaching and doing many miracles. With James and John, I saw him bring the little daughter of Jairus back to life. He even healed my mother-in-law of a disease she had had for many weeks. One morning, Andrew and I brought our empty boat in from a long night of meager fishing. Jesus was on the shore. "Throw your net on the other side of the boat," he called to us. We were tired and discouraged. "Master, we have fished all night and caught nothing," I protested. "Do as I ask," he retorted. We did, and immediately there were so many fish, the net almost broke with its load. We had to get help to save the fish. Yes, Jesus knows his business, even fishing. Oh, and Jesus has a way with words, too. Often the sly Pharisees question him, trying to trap him and test his knowledge of our Jewish faith. I laugh to myself, sometimes at the result. The Pharisees cringe at his answers. Hypocrites, blind leaders of the blind, Jesus calls them. Indeed, he spanks them with his tongue. I want to spank them with the flat of my sword, sometimes even with the cutting edge. Once, Jesus aimed some harsh words at me. He had said that he was going to be imprisoned and put to death. I objected strongly. "That cannot be. You are the Son of God. You are all-powerful. This cannot happen to you." Then Jesus said to me, "Get behind me, Satan. Do not tempt me." I was crushed, horrified, even angry. Sometimes I cannot understand this man. Lately, the crowds that follow him have become thinner. Some people want a political or military leader to fight against those Roman tyrants. Jesus refuses this role. "My kingdom is not of this world," he has said, so his followers are fewer. This question of support must have been on his mind once when he asked us, "Who do men say that I am?" Some of the other disciples were uncertain how to answer. John the Baptist guessed one. Elijah said another. But I knew who he was and is. I have seen enough wonders and heard enough wisdom to convince me. "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." My voice was strong and sure. At that, Jesus' face lit up. "You are like a rock, Simon Bar-Jonah," Jesus said. "From now on, you shall be called Peter." Well, this took all the sting out of being called Satan. And as Peter, I have been known ever since. And like a rock, I shall be strong and faithful to him now. Others may fall away, but I shall not. No, not even if I am tempted as many as 3 times will I desert him. Oh, look, off in the distance. Here comes my friend James. James, please tell these fine people some more stories of our master.
I am James, a son of Zebedee. I used to make my living as a fisherman near Capernaum, where my brother John and I would beach our boat each night next to our good friends Andrew and Simon. John would never tell you that Jesus named us the sons of thunder because of something that happened once. The name has stuck with us, although we have tried to live it down. Here's how it happened. Jesus and all his disciples were traveling to Jerusalem to worship at the temple there. We took a shortcut through Samaria instead of going the long way around because we were in a hurry. As night fell, we found ourselves in a small Samaritan village. We asked for lodging. They said, "We don't have any." We asked for food. "The kitchen is empty," or so they said. Not even when Judas opened his brown leather money bag to offer them something would they even bother to help us. We had no choice but to keep on going through the darkness out of their town. Thomas said we shouldn't have told them that we were going to Jerusalem. The Samaritans have their own temple on Mount Gerizim. They only worship there and don't trust anybody who doesn't. I became furious. It had been a long, hot day. We had traveled many miles. It's an insult to refuse food and lodging to any traveler. They could have gotten to know us disciples, and they insulted the Messiah. I turned to Jesus and said, Lord, let us call down fire from heaven and destroy this miserable town. Look how they've treated you. Jesus was angry. He turned to me. He said, James, you know not what you say. The Son of Man comes to save, not to destroy. Then he added with a touch of humor, because he saw how my face had fallen, he said, you and your brother John are as quick and furious as thunder and lightning. So the sons of thunder we became. I have tried to keep my thunder to a quiet growl. But lately it's getting more and more difficult, especially when these pesky Pharisees come snooping around. They asked Jesus once why he ate on the Sabbath. Jesus' answer was direct and to the point. He told the story of David, who ate temple bread because he was hungry and it was the Sabbath. Another time, the Pharisees asked Jesus, why do you break Sabbath law? This was after Jesus cured a man who had a withered arm. Again, Jesus answered, his answer was direct. He said, if a man owns an ox and it falls into a pit and it's suffering, surely you would pull that ox from the pit, even if it was on the Sabbath. Jesus often answers questions with stories like this. He calls them parables. Like the time some lawyer said, who is my friend? And Jesus replied with the tale of the Good Samaritan. But lately, some of the things he's been saying, I can't understand. I'm confused by them. He said a few days ago that he would be turned over by the chief priests to the Romans, and that they would whip him and kill him. Kill him? Then tonight, he said, one of us would betray him. Who would do that, we who love him so? Perhaps this is just a parable, and I don't understand the meaning. Strange, terrible words. I hope it is just a parable. Here comes my brother John. He can tell you more stories. John, tell these people how Jesus told us to be fishers of men.
I am John, a brother of James. James has spoken of me as we are almost always together. Now, one day when we were drying our nets, Jesus came to our friends Andrew and Simon, and he called out to them saying, come and I will make you fishers of men. Now, we stared on in amazement as the two spoke briefly, walked up the hill, and joined the rabbi. But we were even more amazed when he called out to us, saying that he needed us. Well, quickly, I turned to my brother and said, well, the boat is safe and we have the time. Now, this would be the most important decision of our lives. For many months now, we have served the man and listened to his words, stared on in awe and amazement at his many miracles. All the while, his love and compassion for others have drawn hundreds to him. Now, I can understand that you find it odd that 4 rough, ignorant fishermen would be serving such a great man. But when the crowd swelled and pushed to get close to him, well then, he really needed us. Now, it has gotten so bad at times that we have had to lock arms to hold back the surging crowds and stamp on a few toes to discourage them. Now, our parents have not always agreed with our lives. We have neglected our fishing, and we have lived off the land. Well, we have lived off of the goodness of others. And that is not to say that our father Zebedee cannot support our family. It's just that he expects us to do our part. Our mother is also concerned with our circumstances. And it is these circumstances that led her before the master. She fell on her knees and begged, "Lord, let my son sit at your right and left hand when you come into your kingdom." Upon hearing her request, the other talking of the disciples ceased, and silence engulfed us. Now, I became hot with embarrassment, and I raised my arm to interrupt, but Jesus merely waved me aside, saying, "That which you ask for, I have no control. Only God can decide." He turned on my brother and I and said, "Is that what you desire also? For if so, you know not what you ask for. Can you drink of the same cup that I am about to drink?" I did not understand the master's words, but I loved the man for understanding my mother's selfish desires, and I said, "Yes, Lord, we can and we will." The other disciples, on the other hand, were not so understanding. "Who do you think you are to take position above the rest of us? We have worked just as hard and are just as deserving as you." But Jesus chastised all of us. "You are acting like children. You are all worthy and deserving. But one among you who would be the greatest must become the servant of all." We all stared at each other, blinking with doubt. I have merely filed this away with many of the other teachings of the Master. Love your neighbor. Do unto others. Give everything. And it shall be returned to you, pressed down and overflowing. Now, I am just an ignorant fisherman, and I do not understand the Master's words. But I do know that he is a kind and just man. And someday, I hope to understand.
Together once
am James, a son of Alphaeus. I am a brother of Levi, also called Matthew. But you won't hear much of that relationship because Matthew and I have gone our separate ways since our youth. When Matthew took his tax collecting job with the Romans, we parted company. How anyone could work for that tyrant, Herod Antipas, I cannot understand. Especially how my own brother could betray his flesh and blood for money. Death to the Romans, I say. Remember that great leader of ours, John Hyrcanus? 100 years ago, we were a strong nation under him. Now, these tyrants have their heavy feet on our necks. We are meek and afraid. How can Levi cooperate with them? You may well ask, if you and Levi feel differently, why are you now both disciples of Jesus? Well, we both have changed. Levi especially is a changed man. He is no longer sullen and unhappy. As for myself, I am still looking for the restoration of the kingdom. That is why I have joined up with Jesus. The Messiah, it is said, will restore that kingdom to its former glory. And this Jesus is being hailed as the Messiah. Sometimes I think he is going about it in a peculiar way. But I am watching and trying to learn how a Messiah works. Levi and I still have our differences, sometimes coming to blows. One day, Jesus called us together. You are blood brothers, he scolded, but you act like you are enemies. Remember what I have told you. Sometimes it is better to turn the other cheek, or to walk a second mile with one's adversary. Ashamed, we embraced, and are trying to work together to bring God's kingdom to the earth. It is not easy for me. I still want to buckle on a sword, grab a shield, and follow a leader into battle against the Romans. I am puzzled by those teachings of Jesus which contradict my desires. How is this situation we disciples find ourselves in right now going to work out? If Jesus is taken prisoner by the Jewish authorities or by the Romans, what should our response be? To slink away and hide, or to gather friends and rescue him? And if Jesus is put to death, as he has predicted, should we offer ourselves to the murderers also? How can death serve the cause of the kingdom? That is the question I am trying to answer.
I am Levi. For many years, I held an important position. I was a tax collector for Herod and the Romans. Boy, do those politicians have an appetite for money. Well, in their defense, there are roads, bridges, aqueducts that had to be built and maintained, and legions had to be housed and fed, but their leaders also lived a life of luxury. I had an office over by the Sea of Galilee where the boats docked, right by one of the major highways where their caravans passed daily. We collected taxes on imports and on exports. We collected taxes on the number of mules and camels that use the highways. We taxed the trade goods. We taxed the number of sheep in the field and the number of the fish that you caught. We taxed just about everything but the air you breathe. We'd have taxed that if we could have figured out how. As you may guess, my fellow Jews complained. I was cursed at. I was hated. I was despised. Why, even in the synagogue, I had to wash off by myself. Money is a poor substitute when one is friendless. Most of my days were rather sad and lonely. From my office window, I'd often see this man Jesus walk past. He was always followed by crowds of people. And when he would stop, they would eagerly gather around him. Even the epileptics and the paralytics and the lame and the blind. And he would treat them all alike. He would treat them with love and with kindness. I wonder what he would do if I, a tax collector, would go up to him and crawl out in my self-pity at my loneliness. Right then and there, I decided I was going to give up my job as a tax collector. But that wasn't going to be very easy. Few jobs paid as well. Besides that, I didn't have any other offers. Well, it wasn't long after that I was working in my office, and I looked up, and there was Jesus standing in the doorway. "Levi," he said, "I've been watching you. I can tell by the grief in your eyes and the bitterness in your voice. You lead a rather unhappy life. Why don't you come with me? I'll show you a much better way." Well, I didn't hesitate a moment. I closed up my books and I followed him out of the office. "Rabbi," I said, "would you come and have dinner with me tonight?" Well, that night, Jesus came with 4 of his disciples, and I had invited some of my fellow tax collectors. And after a good meal, Jesus sat and talked to us. That night was a turning point in my life. My money's not that important to me anymore. I don't return hate for hatred. In fact, Jesus even gave me a new name. He called me Matthew, means gift of Jehovah. Can you imagine that after I had been the agent of the devil for so long? But that's the way my master is. He can look deep inside and see the real person. "Seek ye first the kingdom of God," he said, "and all else will be added to that." And I wrote that down. "Matthew," he said, "you've got a way with words." So I've written down much of what Jesus said and did for future generations. I'll hope that they will profit from this. Oh, there's my friend Simon. Hi, Simon.
Shortly after becoming a disciple of Jesus, a terrible crisis came to me. I am Simon, not Peter. The other disciples call me Zelotes, for I was a zealot. We zealots were fighting men, remnants of an army led by Judas, the Galilean. We fought a holy war against the Romans, but our revolt was crushed. We had to go into hiding. That's when I became a follower of Jesus. I sensed he was going to be our next great leader. But I soon realized he wasn't going to be the fierce crusader I had hoped for. His ways were kind and gentle. The way he treated the poor and the afflicted made my former violence seem hateful and crude. So I changed. Well, I changed until that crisis I mentioned earlier. One day, Jesus brought a new disciple to meet us. He introduced him as Levi. This Levi was a slight, studious man. He had given up a good job in Capernaum to join us. I had seen this Levi before. I just couldn't remember where or when. Well, 2 days later, it came to me. It sent me into a spasm of rage. This Levi had been the tax collector in Capernaum. He had robbed his fellow Jews of their hard-earned money. He was a publican, a robber, a thief. Oh, we zealots, we have a way with traitors. Dark alleys and sharp knives work wonders for these people. Well, Jesus had changed Levi's name to Matthew now. One evening at the campfire, He came up to me and said, "Simon, I can tell by your clenched fist and the glint in your eyes you hate Matthew. But he is one of us. He serves us well. He has repented of his sins." He says, "If you love me as you love the Master, you will repent of your sins also." Then curtly he said, "Come with me." He led me away from the campfire into the darkness. As we walked up the hillside, I sensed someone else with me. I bumped into him. It was Matthew. But by then we were out of earshot of the other disciples. Jesus fell to his knees. He pulled Matthew and I to our knees. And he began to pray that we would find love and forgiveness for one another. As his prayers and petitioning rose and fell in the darkness, felt like the warm arms of God had wrapped around me. My eyes filled with tears, so many I couldn't see the campfire down below. Well, Matthew and I walked back down the hillside, arm in arm. As we walked, our differences seemed to vanish. Through the love of God and Jesus, we have been friends ever since. Now here's another man of action, Thaddeus.
I am Thaddeus, a patriotic Jew. And I look forward to the time when Israel can throw off the Roman yoke and become a great nation again. I've been with Jesus for many months now, and I became a disciple because I like the way the Master walks boldly and bravely among all types of people. Romans, Jews, rich, poor, Pharisee, peasant. And I like the way he stands for the common man. He has the qualities a leader needs. He's got a bold face, a sharp tongue, good common sense, knowledge of the ways of his people, and a dedication to his cause. And what's that cause? No? It's preparing for the coming kingdom of God on earth. And that is my cause too. Restoring the kingdom of Israel to its former power and glory. For too long, we have been stomped on, pushed aside, and taxed to death by the Romans. It's time the Messiah come to lead us to avenge this evil. Sometimes, though, I find the Master a little slow in getting his army organized. But the crowds have been flocking around him. I guess he feels the healing of the sick and the blind will gain him fame, so that many will join under his banner when the time comes. It's rather clever of him to build this quiet support. Yet, some of the things he preaches about don't make much fever for fighting. For instance, he recently said, "Return good for evil." And also, if a man makes you walk a mile with him, walk 2 miles with him. And love your enemies. No doubt there's hidden meaning in these words, and he uses them as parables. He hides the irony in his voice very well. Tonight, we're gathered here for the Passover meal, almost in secret, as though we have to hide. Why do we need to hide? We know that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and he has the power to do anything he wants. It's time he took the lead openly. And he could cry out for all to hear, "Yes, I am the way, the truth. Follow me to victory." Fired up by this belief, I confronted him, and I said, "Jesus, why is it that you've declared yourself to the disciples, but you've yet to do so for the rest of the world? Surely the time has come to show yourself to the public." His answer was unclear to me. He said, "If a man loves me, he will keep my words, and my Father will love him, and he will come unto him, and we will make our abode with him."
I'm disappointed. But I've known Jesus long enough to know that there is much meaning in these words, if I can define them. So I asked him to show me his power. And he told me that his is the power of love, and that if we obey him, he and his Father will dwell within us in love. Can it be that love is power? Oh, Heavenly Father, please help my understanding.
I'm the treasurer of this little band of disciples. Judas Iscariot is my name. I came from a family of merchants in Judea and have a great deal of experience in finance. And it was for this reason that Jesus felt that I could better keep track of the funds needed to provide for his ministry, as well as for the disciples' living. To be sure, there's not much money to be handled. But you know, we could have more if some of the disciples weren't so liberal with their giving to the poor and to the needy, and sometimes to the lazy also. Take, for example, that spikenard of ointment that some hysterical woman poured over Jesus' feet the other day. That could have been sold for 300 denarii. We surely could have used that to better advantage. Still, my place is not without gain. Here I am seated at this table, at a place of honor, to the right of the Master. Jesus and the other disciples consider me honest and trustworthy. I do have an advantageous position. But there's little else I like about my job. All of the other disciples are Galilean, and I'm Judean. And because of that, they leave me out of their confidences. They're like a little clique, and quite frankly, I feel snubbed. Not to mention the fact that Peter, James, and John are the Master's favorites. But oh yes, when the others want money, boy, then they really change their tune. They become all smiles and chummy then. You know, the reason that I joined the disciples was because I could see that Jesus was becoming a very popular and influential man. Boy, he was even being called the Messiah. And people were literally flocking to hear his sermons and to be healed. And his future really looked good. Now, the Messiah is to lead the Jews to freedom and to the restoration of the kingdom. And if Jesus becomes a national leader, or maybe even a king, I could become his national treasurer, and all that tax money would go through my hands. But strangely enough, the Master refuses to accept this role. He's turned thumbs down on it. You know, how blind can he be not to see all of that power? That power that could be his. But it's like he has no ambition or foresight whatsoever. And me? Looks like I'm stuck here as the treasurer of this little band of paupers. How can I make Jesus change his mind? I talked to one of the other disciples, Simon Zelotes, not Simon Peter, about this. And Simon used to be a member of the Zealot party. Those Jewish patriots are willing to fight for their country, while they believe that the sword is mightier than soft words and compromise. To be sure, Simon's radical patriotism has simmered down since he's been with Jesus, but he thinks that maybe all of the people who have flocked to Jesus and the Zealots might join ranks and together overthrow the Romans. I've even tried to talk to Jesus about this plan, but he'll have none of it. You know what he told me? He said, those that live by the sword will die by the sword, and the kingdom that I want, the kingdom that I'm hoping for, is not his kingdom. Whatever that is. You know, there's been some talk around here tonight about somebody betraying Jesus. Well, I need to confess. Right now, I'm feeling betrayed by Jesus. He's our leader. And I've seen him perform miracles you wouldn't believe. I've seen him heal the sick and the lame. I've even seen him bring the dead back to life. He is powerful enough to do anything he wants to do, but lately it seems like day by day he's doing less and less and less. And tonight we had to sneak up here, and we're literally holding the supper in secret. Somehow, I have got to make Jesus see the great possibilities of my plan. You know, maybe that dreamer needs to be jolted back to reality. I wonder, what if his life were really threatened? I mean, he became really scared, faced with arrest and maybe even death. Would he change his mind? You know, maybe then, just maybe then, he would take the role of the true Messiah, and with all the power of God at his command, destroy those hated Roman tyrants. you know what? That's it. I've made up my mind. It's obvious to me that in order to get Jesus to do something, there's going to have to be a confrontation, a crisis. I shall leave this room now and see to it.
I come here tonight nervous and afraid. An evil world surrounds us. This feeling has been with me all week, except, of course, when Jesus rode into Jerusalem atop the palm leaves to the shouts and hurrahs of the people. That was an uplifting moment, but my feelings soon sank. My name is Thomas. I'm a carpenter. I feel closer to Jesus because of our profession. We both love the rasp of a saw and the smell of fresh shavings. I'm a practical man because of my training. One must choose the right wood in order to make a chair, and one must price it right in order to make a profit. I'm being practical now. When I look at Jesus, I see what I see, and what I see is a growing discontent with the Master. When I joined the disciples, we rode the crest of his popularity. Now, the waves we ride are angry and rough. We struggle, and we may drown. When Jesus fed the 5,000, the people were ready to make him their king. Now the crowds have thinned. They've given in to the ruffians planted among us by the Jewish authorities. They weave their way through the crowds. Friends of sinners, they shout. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Beelzebub, Satan, they cry. And so there are very few of us left. Still, he has us disciples, but we are not as faithful as we should be. Some of us are too dumb to understand him. Others are rash and headstrong, and still others doubt the wisdom of the Master. For example, when Jesus decided to come into Jerusalem this time, after much thought and prayer, we thought it was a mistake. We thought it would be walking into the lion's den, inviting trouble. Still, we did not want to openly oppose him. Then, after much debate, after much hemming and hawing, I stood up and said, "Let us go with him, even if it means we must die." And so we sit here tonight at the solemn Passover meal. It grew more solemn still when Jesus said one of us would betray him to the Jewish authorities. We looked at each other, wild-eyed and incredulous. "Is it I, Lord? Which one of us could betray you?" Simon Peter said to the one sitting next to Jesus, "Ask him who he's talking about." Jesus must have said something to Judas, for after Jesus spoke, Judas stood up and walked out the door, but with a flushed and angry look on his face. I wonder which one of us could betray him.
Tonight, one of you will betray me.